All right. Good morning, everyone. Appreciate you joining us here today. My name is Robbie, as I said, and I have the pleasure of being Tom Hegna's agent. Worked with Tom for the past about 6 years now. Tom had a last-minute scheduling conflict and won't be able to join us today. He actually is on audio right now, listening in and keeping an eye on us to make sure we're staying on time. So we're going to get moving along here, and thanks for being here. So as many of you know, Tom's on the road very, very often, traveling all around the world. And very recently, a couple months back, we had the pleasure of meeting Robert Siciliano, who will be featured on the webinar today. Rob and Tom were speaking at the same event down in Florida and got to chatting about their different stories and background. And it was fascinating in different industries that they both had very similar paths and journeys to their entrepreneurship. After they spoke, Tom gave me a call immediately. He said, "We got to get this Rob Siciliano. We got to get him on a webinar. We need to get this content out to our advisors that we talk to, because this information is very valuable to protect their clients and to protect their clients' portfolios and information." So Rob is an expert in identity theft and fraud protection. He is actually a best-selling author on Amazon.com and the CEO of idtheftsecurity.com. And last thing is, before I pass it off to Rob, we will be recording this today and sending it out probably about an hour afterwards. And Rob will be taking questions at the end. So if you want to submit any questions, just hit the chat box, submit them through the chat, and Rob will be taking them at the end. Again, thanks for being here, and we appreciate you joining us. I'm going to pass the reins over to Rob, and he'll get started. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robbie. And thank you, Tom. It's been great working with Tom and his team. He is quite a rock star, and again, it's a real honor to be here today. Welcome, everyone, to this special webinar. Again, my name is Robert Siciliano, and some of you know me. Some of you know that my coaching stays completely full, and I coach some of the top CIOs, CSOs, CEOs, and consult to many of the top companies in the country. Welcome to this special webinar. For those of you who don't know me, real quick, Robbie mentioned it, I am an author. I've written 5 books, one which was a bestseller on Amazon. I've been featured in another 12 to 14 books as a contributor and sourced in regards to my expertise. My clients are some of the who's who in the Fortune 500: UPS, Alliance, Honeywell, ExxonMobil, Morgan Stanley, BP, Intel, McAfee, HP, Coldwell Banker, MasterCard, and so forth. This is my bread and butter. This is what I do and who I am. And then media, real quick. If you were to do a quick search on Robert Siciliano in Google News, you'd see within the past week I've been in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, U.S. News and World Report, CNN, talking about Pruitt's problematic security problem. And, this is what I do. This is who I am. I just want to let you know and, qualify my position as an expert so you can feel good that you are properly investing your time. So we are here today to discuss the top 10 risks affecting your money, your life, and that of your client's money in their life as well. I have been called in to FA's offices to literally sit down with singular clients that I've needed to talk off a cliff because they were just so paranoid about giving their financial advisor any personal identifying information whatsoever, that the public in general is completely freaked out by what's going on out there due to the onslaught of data breaches we've experienced over the past 10, 15 years. And so my role and responsibility is to educate you and your clients as to what they need to know, what they need to do, and to provide a significant degree of perspective. When it's all said and done, I remove all the fear and worry and just provide you with the facts so that you know what to do when you see and hear about a particular data breach. So here, number one, protect your devices and data from spies and snoops. So I'm going to give you an overview on what's been going on and just how big of a problem this ultimately is. And then, of course, what you got to do to lock down your identity and your sensitive information. So here, more than 4 billion records stolen in 2016. The 4,149 confirmed breaches exposed more than 4.2 billion records. That's approximately 3.2 billion more records that were exposed in 2013, the previous all-time high. So it's no wonder why the public is freaking out. That's 2016, 4 billion records. Moving ahead just 1 year, 2017 smashed world records for most data breaches ever. It was a record-breaking year for the number of publicly reported data breaches and exposed records in 2017 worldwide, a total of 5,200 data breaches totaling 7.89 billion information records compromised. So in 2 years, that's over 10,000 data breaches and 12 billion records stolen. It is just amazing how lax many of these major corporations and government agencies are in protecting their information, but they are becoming hardened, meaning they're becoming harder to hack. So what that means is that smaller moms and pops, you and I, small businesses, your clients, they become the path of least resistance. So here, Russian hackers have access to 270 million email logins, including Gmail and Yahoo accounts. Right. So there's over almost a quarter, more than a quarter billion emails and the passwords in the hands of criminals. And then here, Yahoo says that all 3 billion of their accounts were breached. So that's pretty significant. That's usernames and passwords, email addresses being usernames. 3.2 billion of those records in the hands of criminals. And there's a problem as a result of this. And I'll explain what that means, what that means to you, what that means to your clients. So here is an example of how that data can be turned into cash. So here, cyber criminals sneak into realty deals and sneak out with $100,000 or more. Your closing funds may be heading to a cyber criminal. So let me read on. While no one knows the exact number of victims or the extent of the problem, the National Association of Realtors told the Chicago Post that this scam has hit hundreds, if not thousands, of home closings. It became serious enough that the Federal Trade Commission issued a warning to home buyers, basically that the entire real estate industry is insecure. As for what's fueling this trend, some experts we spoke to point out to the relatively lax security in the world of real estate compared with other financial industries. And they quoted me saying that it was just a matter of time until scammers recognize the opportunity to target real estate agents and their clients. Currently, most industries that have experienced large data breaches have put systems in place and become hardened. That means that the real estate industry and others become the path of least resistance. Unlike the entire financial industry, who have encrypted communications, the real estate industry is a hodgepodge of free email accounts and unprotected communications. But it's not just the real estate industry that is being affected like this. So with billions of email addresses, along with their associated passwords in the hands of criminals, bad guys are actually inside of your Gmail, your Yahoo, your Hotmail, your company email. If you're not using two-factor authentication, it's likely, it's possible that a criminal is actually lurking inside of your inbox, watching your emails come in, watching your emails going out. They're watching your sent emails as well. And they're literally monitoring every single communication. If you're a lawyer, financial advisor, using your personal email, you're an accountant, right? You are any white collar service professional or any mom and pop small business that deals with any account that's connected to finances of any kind at all, whether it's your bank, credit card company, any retail site. The bad guys are just sitting and watching and waiting. And in this particular scenario with the real estate agents, the example might be the agent has a new client and they're going back and forth via email, setting up times and dates to look at various properties to buy a home. And over time, the buyer makes an offer on a property that they enjoy, and all of that can be seen by the bad guy inside the real estate agent's email. And eventually, they make that offer, the offer is accepted, and ultimately a closing date is set. A week or two before closing, the bad guy sees that closing is coming up, and the bad guy from the real estate agent's email sends off a communication to the buyer saying, okay, anticipating closing in 2 weeks, I need you to wire $100,000 to this particular account, in anticipation of the closing so we can get in and out of the closing as quickly as possible. The buyer is getting an email from his real estate agent's account. Thinks nothing of it because it's from the real estate agent's account. And then the buyer wires that money. And then a couple days later calls up the real estate agent and says, hey, did you get my, wire transfer? And the agent's like, well, what are you talking about? And the buyer's like, what do you mean, what am I talking about? You sent me off an email regarding wiring money in anticipation of the closing. You didn't get the money? And the real estate agent says, well, I never requested that. What do you mean you never requested that? That scenario is playing out all over the country, all over the world, actually. And I know people that this has happened to. I know people that have witnessed this while they were at closings and someone came in the office of the title attorney screaming their head off. What do you mean you didn't ask for that money? What do you mean you didn't send me off that email? And now the lawsuits begin. But the fact of the matter is the money's gone. And this can happen to anybody due to the fact that 12 billion records have been stolen just in the past 2 years. Never mind the past decade, which is probably close to 20 billion records. Usernames and passwords, all in the hands of criminals. So what do you do about it? So here is a website. Don't go there right now, but I'm hoping you have a pen and paper handy. This is Have I Been Pwned? You see in the upper left-hand corner, Have I Been, PWNED.com. Go there, not right now, but because you'll lose your train of thought if you go there right now. You won't be able to hear what I'm about to say. Once you go there, you enter your email address into this website. This has been set up by a security company that has amassed billions of records that have been compromised, and they can tell you straight up if your username, email address, basically, has been involved in any specific breaches. If I was to type in my robertsiciliano@gmail.com address into this website, you would quickly see that my email address has been hacked on 14 different accounts, including LinkedIn and Cafe Mom and a bunch of different Bitcoin websites that I'm on and a few different forums. And ultimately, my email address and the associated password with all of those various accounts would now be in the hands of criminals. Now, for me, all I have to do is just change the password for all of those hacked accounts. But for most people, their password for all of those hacked accounts is the same password as their actual email address. That means that the bad guy is actually accessing their email. They're inside their email monitoring all of their various transactions. So it's really important that you don't have the same password for multiple accounts. Now, on this same website, Have I Been Pwned, you can also search passwords that have been hacked. So again, this particular site has amassed billions of records, and they can tell you the exact passwords for many of these breached accounts. So if I was to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into this account, you'd see quickly that over 20 million people are using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as their actual password, which is a huge problem. And if I was to type in the word Robert, over 3 million people are using the word Robert as a password. If I was to type in the word password, over 4 million people are using the word password as a password. And the bad guys know this. They know that we're using simple, easy to guess, crackable passwords. They know that we're using the same password across multiple accounts. So it's very important that you consider and use what's called a password manager. So a password manager, right, is probably one of the best uses of your time and money to make sure that your data is properly protected, that your accounts aren't hacked. So Password Manager is a small download, just a few megabytes that you might pay a monthly fee for or an annual fee or a lifetime license for. I've been using a Password Manager since 2004. And my Password Manager, and there's many of them out there, has not been hacked. And that's what the concern of most people is what if the Password Manager is hacked? Well, for me, that's the least of my concerns. The password manager companies, they are security companies, and their goal, their role is to make sure that you are properly protected. So they're unlikely to be hacked in a way that all of your data is going to be exposed. So that's not a worry. The worry that I have is more so that you and your clients are using the same password across multiple accounts and that you're using easy to guess or easy to crack passwords. That's an issue. The password manager, again, they're a security company. You can do some searches online and find various sites that will rate all the different password managers So here is PC Magazine's, the best password managers of 2017 or 18, and they'll show you the prices and the features and benefits for all the different password managers. So if you go online, not right now, and search the term password manager, you'll find out what your options are right there, right? And I'm happy to answer any more questions in that regard, towards the end of the presentation. And then preventing identity scams from ruining your credit and stealing tax refunds. Well, ruining credit is, when they steal your identity and they've made a mess of your credit ratings. And stealing tax refunds, of course, is when they file taxes before you do. We'll talk about that and how to prevent that from happening. So here is one website among many. If I was to do a quick search online for, fake ID, right? On the first page of search, I'd find a bunch of different websites right off the bat that you can buy fake IDs for any state in the union, or frankly, any developed nation, really, UK, Australia, and so forth. This is just one of many different sites out there where you can buy fake IDs. And with all these data breaches where your social security number is compromised, driver's license numbers are compromised, and then of course, credit card numbers, bank account numbers, and so forth, the system of identity, a few searches away, with a quick purchase, anybody can become anyone. It's the system of identity is based on the honor system. As long as everybody's honest, we're not going to have any problems. But the honor system is based on the mindset that we are all sheep and there are no wolves. And that just isn't the case at all. So here, Equifax breach affects 143 million customers, right? Equifax is just one of the many thousands of data breaches, and it's not even the biggest data breach. And it's important to understand that the chief executive officer, the chief security officer is she's retired now as a result of the breach, and she has a bachelor's and a master's of fine arts degree in music composition, and she had zero experience in security. So I'm sure the CSO is a really nice person, but she, was not the right person for the role she was in. Now, Equifax's CEO and CIO are both gone. They didn't get fired, they retired with big fat paychecks. And that just gives you an idea of, who's, at the helm of the ship. And we know Equifax went under. That said, it is up to you and I to protect ourselves, to put systems in place, because these companies are doing a poor job of it. And as a result of the Equifax breach, fundamentally, what you need to do to protect your identity is to get a credit freeze. So new account fraud is when the bad guy gets your social security number. And when they get your social, they open up new lines of credit under your name. And a credit freeze locks down your credit report, so the lenders can't see your credit scores. If a lender can't see your credit score, they're not about to issue credit under your name. And once you engage a credit freeze, that significantly reduces the chance that a bad guy is going to use your social to open up a new line of credit. Of course, with the Equifax breach, 145.5 million names, addresses, socials, driver's license numbers, and so forth. That's more than 2/3 of the adult population. It's likely that all of those people eventually will suffer financial fraud as a result, unless they get a credit freeze. So if you go to the 4 major credit bureaus, yes, there are 4: Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and Innovis, right? So if you were to go online and search credit freeze, don't do it right now, but go search credit freeze Experian, credit freeze Equifax, credit freeze TransUnion, and credit freeze Innovis, you will find the page on the first page of search on how you freeze your credit. And I recommend that your clients do the same thing right now, or at least after this call. That said, once your credit's frozen, you can thaw your credit at any given point in time simply by going back to any of these sites, plugging in your username and password, and you will effectively have control via a dashboard that allows you to freeze and unfreeze your credit at will. And again, that locks the bad guy out from using your social to open up new lines of credit under your name. All that said, it really shouldn't be that big of a deal as far as freezing or unfreezing. It's an easy process, and it does not gum up your credit. It does not negatively affect your credit scores. It does not change, anything other than the fact that you now have control. It might cost you $5 to $10 per credit bureau to freeze your credit, and then maybe $5 to unfreeze and automatically refreeze it at another given time. Like I said, you have a dashboard that gives you complete control over when it's frozen and when it's thawed. And all that said, you keep those records, their freezing records, along with your birth certificate, the title to your vehicles, the title to your home, all of your most important documents. This is one of those things that you now have to do in life, and a requirement to protect yourself. And those documents are necessary. You can also freeze your kids' credit. So kids are 17 and under. So in 29 states, you can freeze kids' credit. I would just do a quick search of the state that you live in, and ultimately the term child credit freeze to determine what your options are. A credit freeze, again, is the best thing that you can do right now to lock down your identity from new account fraud. And then credit checks. I think it's really important that you check your credit at least once a year. You could check it up to 3 times annually at annualcreditreport.com. You won't get your credit scores, but you will get the revolving lines of credit that are listed on your credit report. That's annualcreditreport.com. If you do see revolving lines of credit that aren't supposed to be there, that essentially might mean fraud. So dispute those inaccuracies with the credit bureau and with that particular lender. Check your spouse's credit report, check your child's credit report. 17 and under, they shouldn't have a credit report. If they do, that might mean fraud. And then there is extended fraud alerts. If you are a victim of identity theft, you can get an extended fraud alert, but that's merely just well, I think a false sense of security. It doesn't necessarily lock down your identity. It's just a notification on your credit report that you might be a victim of identity theft, but the lender doesn't necessarily have to, check in with you to see if you're trying to open up a new account. And then there's identity theft protection, which I do like. I recommend that everybody have identity theft protection, but first and foremost, you should have a credit freeze up front. And then there's credit monitoring. I do like credit monitoring, especially when it's free. Right? It's a form of identity theft protection. If you have AAA, you can get free credit monitoring with AAA. Just log into your AAA account and search credit monitoring, and you can get it free through Experian. Same thing with Credit Karma. That's free. That's like $10, $15 a month for free. But I have the credit freeze, and I have identity theft protection, and I have credit monitoring. And those multiple layers of protection are the best way to protect me and my identity and my family's identity as well. And your clients should all do the same thing. And essentially, once you freeze your credit, once you have identity theft protection, you're essentially inoculated from new account fraud. Like, I can give out my social and not worry about it because I have a credit freeze, because I have identity theft protection. I have multiple layers of protection in place to make the data, the social, useless to the thief. You should definitely do this and recommend your clients do it as well. And I've spoken to a number of financial advisors and their clients in the past, and when your clients aren't sure what to do, you walk them through the process. They will love you for it. They can come into your office. You can help them out. You can take them online. You can help them answer the questions, and they will really appreciate that you're doing this for them. They love that. So identity frauds and scams, a few things to be aware of. We talked about new account fraud, using another person's identifying information like their social to obtain products and services, right? And you protect yourself from new account fraud by getting a credit freeze. Account takeover, using a person's account numbers like a credit card number to obtain products and services, using that person's existing accounts or extracting funds from the person's bank account. Account takeover fraud is like, your credit card is compromised. And I'm not worried about credit card fraud, but we'll talk about more in a minute. Account takeover fraud might be when the bad guy gets your username and your password, like for your email account or for your bank account. And the way you protect yourself from account takeover fraud, of course, is you use a different password for every account. And also consider that you have to keep your devices properly protected, making sure that you update your operating system with antivirus, anti-spyware, anti-phishing, and a firewall. Keep all of your various software updated, latest critical security patches for your OS. That's basic computer security 101. We spoke to child identity theft. It happens to about 1 million kids a year. The best way to protect them is via a credit freeze and or identity theft protection. Most services will monitor your kids' social as well. And then there's tax-related scams. So tax-related scams hit 240 million in 2017, 109,000 victims, about 10,000 businesses being affected. That means the bad guys essentially file your taxes before you do. They lie, and they get a refund. And then when you go to file your taxes, you kind of get bumped out because the IRS is like, well, what are you talking about? We already got your tax return. And the problem here is that it can gum up, your taxes. You might get audited. Like there's all kinds of nasty things that can happen as a result. So if I was to go online and search, and this is what I want you to write down, search identity theft affidavit. So IRS, identity theft affidavit. One more time, IRS, identity theft affidavit. And you're going to find a search for form 14039. So IRS form 14039. You'll end up on the IRS's website and find a PDF that you fill out, print it out, send it into the IRS. And this is basically telling the IRS that you believe that you might be a victim of identity theft. And there's literally a box you check that says, I think I'm a victim of identity theft. And it asks you, what makes you think you're a victim of identity theft? And all you got to do is fill in, well, my information was compromised in the Equifax breach. My information was compromised in the Target breach. My information was compromised in the Home Depot breach. My information was compromised in the Cambridge Analytica Facebook breach. And any other situation where you've got a credit card in the mail as a result of a data breach because they replaced your credit card. Or you got a letter from a company that was breached and they provided you identity theft protection services. Whatever the case might be, any breach that you were ever a part of, plug into this document, and now you are on a list in the IRS where they are on high alert and they're monitoring your information in a way that they will only send your refund to you specifically opposed to anywhere else. Because it's not unusual for somebody to have a residence in one state and their refund goes to another state. And bad guys know this, and so they manipulate that system. And you could live in Boston, but the refund goes to Florida. And that's a real problem. But if you're telling the IRS exactly what you want to happen via the IRS identity theft affidavit, you lock down your identity via the IRS. So as far as your credit cards, right, that is essentially, in my mind, a non-issue. And what that means is that credit card fraud is not identity theft. It's just credit card fraud. But people are concerned about it. Therefore, some basic perspective. As long as you check your statements and refute unauthorized charges, you should be fine. I make sure to pay attention to my statements as often as possible. So that means that really, like every time I charge, I'm monitoring my statements, and I'll show you what that means in a moment. You can certainly check your statements, via paper once a month, but I mean, I'm almost 50, and my mind doesn't remember 30 days ago that well, especially like where I ate and where I shopped and whether I bought something online or at a brick and mortar. And sometimes the name on the credit card receipt doesn't match the merchant on the statement, and it just can get a little convoluted. So what I do, jumping to the third tip, is I set up transaction notifications and or push alerts and or push notifications. That means that I go to my credit card company or bank's website, right? And I sign up for alerts. So I've gone to Visa and MasterCard. I've gone to American Express. I've gone to my card company. And I went to the website and I signed up for every single time there's a charge, I'm going to be notified of that charge every single time. So if I'm sitting in a restaurant and I hand my credit card to the waiter, and he goes out back and he charges my card, instantaneously, I'm going to get a text message showing that, there was just a charge at this particular restaurant for $70. And then after that, I throw the tip on it, and then eventually I'm charged for the whole amount. But I'm getting notification in real time that my card's being charged. Otherwise, you can check your mobile app once a day. You can check your statement online as often as you want, but I like getting the text messages. As a matter of fact, true story, just a couple of weeks back, I was taking my kids to school, driving them to school, and I get a couple of text messages, one for $17 charged and one for $18 charged at Whole Foods at 7:30 in the morning. So I'm driving the kids to school. I know my wife is at home because there's no way she's leaving the house at 7:30 in the morning to go to Whole Foods. She's just not doing that. But I know she shops at Whole Foods. So I give my wife a call. I'm like, honey, any chance you're at Whole Foods? She's like, no, I'm taking out the dog. Okay, great. Have you ordered something online at Whole Foods? Any reason to believe why we should be getting a couple of charges at Whole Foods this morning? When was the last time you were at Whole Foods? She's like, I haven't been at Whole Foods in over a month. I says, well, we just got a $17 and $18 charge at Whole Foods, round numbers, which is kind of odd to begin with. And she's like, yeah, I have no idea what that is. And she called American Express. and they took the charges right off. And frankly, if I did not get those text messages and all I was doing was checking my statements at the end of the month, I'm pretty sure I would have ignored those charges and just, paid them, because my wife shops at Whole Foods and it's not unusual for us to be there. And I'm not going to go through every single charge all the time and go back to my wife and go, did you do this? Did you do this? Because that's just not how life is. We're busy. So I get those charges in real time. So sign up for notifications and alerts. Do that now. Well, not now, after we're done here. And you will have control over your credit cards, because you can't protect your cards. Tip number 2, use credit cards instead of debit cards. I don't even own a debit card, meaning I don't have a card from my bank that has a Visa MasterCard logo on it. I have an ATM card from Bank of America, but an ATM card does not have the Visa MasterCard logo on it. I can use it at the ATM. I can use it at the teller checkout line to verify myself, but that's it. I only use my ATM card when I'm making deposits or withdrawals, which I rarely make withdrawals. I usually go inside the bank and get a lump sum of cash that I hold on to and put in my safe once a year. Other than that, I'm not, using a debit card, because if a debit card is compromised, where's the money coming from? It's coming from your bank account. And that scares the heck out of me, because you only have 2 business days by federal law to refute unauthorized activity on your debit card, whereas you have 60 days on a credit card. So I use my credit cards for everything, and I monitor all my charges via text message. And then protecting yourself from social engineering scams. So really important. So you, your family members, your mom and dad, even your kids, and definitely your clients, depending on their age, they're more or less susceptible. Social engineering is a collection of techniques used to manipulate people into performing actions or divulging confidential information, right? That's what social engineering is all about. It's all about manipulation. It's a con. It's a confidence crime. And the derivative of confidence, of course, is con. And the idea behind a con, or con man, con woman, is they try to gain your confidence. And once they gain your confidence, they win. You separate your usernames and passwords. You separate from your wallet, your money, and your credit card information, and bank account information. Social engineering, conning, is the way of the future for bad guys. And a lot of the data breaches are, from phishing emails, which we'll talk about momentarily. And the fact is, there's no patch for human gullibility. We are just gullible. I mean, P.T. Barnum once said that there is a sucker born every minute. I'm going to take it one step further. I think every one of us has a sucker in us. Like, I think every one of us is capable of being scammed. Frankly, if you've ever bought a timeshare, you're a sucker. I've bought a timeshare, so I know. You have a couple of drinks, somebody approaches you, you get a free weekend here, and all of a sudden, $20,000 later, you own a timeshare that you should have just never bought. The fact of the matter is we're all capable of being suckered. Bad guys via email, right, via telephone, and in person, they say you're going to lose something, like you're going to lose access to your account, you're going to lose money, or you're going to gain something, like you're going to win money, or you're going to win the affection of someone, or you're going to win approval of a coworker or your boss. They utilize fear and greed and sex and all human emotions to get access to us. And we're fallible. We just are. We're human. We're easy to manipulate. It's just the way it is. Thieves pose as you, a spouse, a bill collector, a bank, utility, a fellow employee, government agency. I mean, the list goes on. I'll show you some of those scams and what they mean and how to protect themselves from them in a moment. So here is a few examples of some of those scams. People are still dumb enough to pick up abandoned USBs and plug them in. You say, well, what do you mean like abandoned USBs? Like a thumb drive, like a storage drive, right? Like those flash drives that you use all the time. If you were, I don't know, walking through your office parking lot, and on the ground, maybe outside of your vehicle, you saw a brand new thumb drive sitting on the ground. Brand new thumb drive, like, nice and clean, hasn't been run over. You pick it up, it says 120 gigabytes on it. Well, 120 gigabyte thumb drive is worth like 40, 50 bucks. You pick it up, put it in your pocket, don't think anything of it. And then, you put it in your desk drawer. And then a couple of weeks later, your coworker says, hey, I need those files on this particular client. Oh, well, they're too big for email, so just put them on a thumb drive and just hand them to me. Fantastic. You plug the thumb drive into your computer, you download the information, hand it off to your coworker, they plug it into their computer, they upload the files, everything's fine, right? Well, not really, because that thumb drive very likely was dropped in that parking lot specifically so you pick it up, plug it in, and that thumb drive had a virus on it. And then when you hand it off to your coworker, now they have a virus as well. Would you pick up and use someone else's dirty toothbrush? That's how I want you to look at a thumb drive. That thumb drive is a form of social engineering that's being used all over the world to gain access to networks. Don't believe me? Here, Stuxnet delivered to Iranian nuclear plant on thumb drive. Using a standard thumb drive carrying a deadly payload to infect Iran's Natanz nuclear facility, setting U.S. intelligence sources an infected memory stick was used to hit the Natanz nuclear facility with the highly destructive Stuxnet computer worm that severely damaged Iran's nuclear program. It is said or thought that Israeli and U.S. intelligence agents had dropped a thumb drive into the parking lot of the Natanz nuclear facility, specifically with a cyber weapon on that thumb drive designed to go through Natanz's operating system through their network and delete files and speed up the centrifuges so it would burn them out, slowing down Iran's nuclear capabilities for almost 3 to 4 years. It's happening everywhere, not just to steal identities, but as a cyber weapon. Here, Israeli soldiers caught in Hamas online honey trap. This is social engineering. Israel's military says it uncovered a scam by Hamas militants to spy on its soldiers by hacking their mobile phones after posing as women on social media. Sex. So you are a 18-year-old Israeli soldier. You're required to serve. You're on base. You get an instant message from Facebook with this young, hot Israeli girl that wants to connect with you. You're like, yes, I'll be your friend. And next thing you know, you're going back and forth, you're texting each other, she's sending you photos and videos, and you click links. And what you don't know is those links you click on your mobile phone infects your device. And when your mobile phone is infected, which can happen to anyone, specifically on Androids, right? iPhones are somewhat isolated from this. On an Android, you click that link and it infects your device. You have spyware on your mobile phone. From this point on, the bad guy can listen into your phone calls live. They can pick up the audio, the ambient sounds pick up from the microphone. They can take video and pictures from your mobile device remotely, and they can see the exact GPS location of your mobile phone. If that's the case, right, now you are a Hamas militant. You've hacked 40, 50 Israeli soldiers' mobile phones. You see the GPS coordinates of all of them in a concentrated area on base somewhere. What do you do next? You bomb them. So that same technology that's used to steal identities is used for acts of war. For Android mobile phones, you want antivirus. Go to Google Play, search antivirus or security software, and you'll find all kinds of paid and free options. So preventing phishing scams that empty bank accounts, there is spray and pray. Basically, with billions of email addresses compromised, the bad guys send out an email that looks like it's coming from American Express or Bank of America, and how many millions of Bank of America, American Express clients are there. They spray out millions of emails and pray that somebody responds. How many people have to respond to that phishing email for the bad guy to succeed? One. That's it. And they do. And so they send out an email that looks exactly like your American Express email, your Bank of America email that you get in your own inbox all the time. Bad guys have accounts with these companies too. And so they get that exact same email that you get for your online statement, and they just, change it up a little bit and send it out to millions of people, spray and pray. Spear phishing means they're going after you specifically. They're going after your client specifically. They see that you have a relationship with your client on LinkedIn, right? And they contact you. They contact your client, posing as either or. And they get an email correspondence from either one of you. And they know exactly what your communications look like. And they might even search, right, your name or financial advisor in your client's email, because they're inside their client's email already, because they hacked it, because the information's out there, because they use the same password across multiple accounts. And they search financial advisor inside of their inbox. And they contact you from the client's email saying, I want to wire money or transfer money to this particular account, and so on and so forth. Now, I know that you have various protocols in place where you make sure that you're not just doing all business based on email, but your clients don't, and they don't know any better. And then there's SMS mobile phishing, smishing, which we talked about via, that Hamas honey trap. And then there's phishing simulation training, which is, you hire companies to basically hack or try to phish you and your coworkers or employees. Phishing simulation is necessary today. Most of you, I'm sure, at some level have had some form of phishing simulation training, especially if you're in the financial industry. And then there's CEO fraud, also known as BEC, or the business email compromise scam. Schemers go to great lengths to spoof company email or use social media or social engineering to assume the identity of the CEO, company attorney, or trusted vendor. They research employees who manage money and use language specific to the companies they're targeting. They then request a wire transfer using dollar amounts that lend legitimacy. It sends down the bottom that this scam from February or October of 2013 to February 2016 has amounted to more than $2.3 billion in losses, right? Here, as a result of a business email compromise scam, Barbie Brain Mattel exec fell for phishing, sent $3 million to China. So like I said earlier, the bad guys will just go on LinkedIn, search Mattel, right, because they make Barbies, and they search, Mattel purchasing. And they find all the different people at Mattel that their role is purchasing. And they just, connect with them. They pose as a Mattel employee, create a fake LinkedIn profile, and they begin to communicate with the Mattel employees as, say, a vendor. They might get a list of the vendors that Mattel works with overseas. And over time, they gain the confidence, confidence crime, social engineering, of that person from purchasing or accounts payable in Mattel posing as the vendor, and get them to wire money to a specific account. It's not that complicated. You say, oh, that's brilliant. It's really not. It's just, basic physics. It's just, accessing the right people that can make the payment, and you get all the intelligence, the necessary data on LinkedIn, and through making phone calls and sending emails through, company terminals, through their websites. It's just not that difficult. This can happen to anybody. So the BEC attacks will exceed $9 billion in 2018. So business email compromise attacks are projected to exceed $9 billion. To put it into context, it has been less than a year since the FBI reported BEC attacks had become a $5.3 billion industry. So it went from 2.3 in 2016, 5.3 in 17, projected to $9 billion in 2018. That means that you and your clients and your boss and CEO and CIO and CSO, company officers, are all being targeted in spear phishing attacks, where the bad guys are targeting, the internal structures, and they're going after the employees. It's a nightmare. And if you're not up to speed in regards to security awareness, if your clients aren't up to speed regarding your security awareness, what to look out for, what to click on, what not to click on, it's just a matter of time until you're hooked. So, evil cyber scams, scareware, right? Scareware tricks users into paying, right? To buying fake antivirus. Anytime you get a pop-up for fake antivirus, just hit delete. Ransomware holds data for extortion. You show up to the office one day and your desktop is frozen. There's a pop-up that says you have only so many days to pay the ransom. And if you don't pay the ransom, essentially, your data is going to be deleted, and you have to pay it via Bitcoin. The only way that this will happen to you is if your data on your devices is not backed up, A. B, you haven't updated your operating system's critical security patches. You haven't updated your various software programs. You're using the same password across multiple accounts. Your kid is using your company computer to go to gaming sites in North Korea, which is never a good idea, and they infect your device with what's called a zero-day exploit, which is a brand new virus that antivirus doesn't see. And then tech support scams, you might get a phone call or a pop-up that claims that they are Microsoft or Apple, and they've got to log into your machine because you have some type of a virus, right? That can happen because you click the wrong link in an email or in a website, and you go to an infected website that looks like it's, Apple or Microsoft or any other, with either a phone call or a link to click. I saw one just this morning on my own computer. It was pretty crazy. And then spyware software, spies without your knowledge. This is either as a form of malware, malicious software, or it could be purchased. You can buy spyware to monitor your kids, monitor your spouse, monitor your employees. So if you search spyware software, like nanny software, you want to know what your 12-year-old is up to if she's online all day, which she shouldn't be. You want to know what your 14-year-old boy is up to if he's online all day long. I'm sure your 14-year-old kid is a nice kid, but I guarantee you he's up to no good if he's online all day long. He just is. I mean, he's a kid. He's a boy. He's got hormones. That said, you want to monitor what your employees are doing, what your kids are doing, and so on. And then key loggers are hardware that log your keystrokes. I'll show what a keylogger looks like momentarily. IRS scams. Anytime you get an email or a phone call that looks like it's coming from the IRS, just delete, just hang up. Tell your clients the same, because the IRS does not make phone calls. They do not send email. It's amazing how many people get bit by this scam. It's a confidence crime. You have the confidence it's the IRS calling. You have the confidence it's the IRS sending off an email, and you respond to it. Just delete, just hang up. Tell your clients the same thing. And then romance scams. They target the emotionally vulnerable. And I know some of you are going, romance scams, like I would never fall for that. Here's the thing. Loneliness trumps common sense all day long, okay? True story, totally true story. Financial advisor friend of mine, north of Boston. Within the past year and a half, his dad died. Totally true story. 60-something years old, right? So his mom, she's left a widow. And so the mom, after a year, right, son goes to the house. My friend goes to his mom's house Sunday morning with the kids, you know, kitchen table, sits down, sees a laptop there. It's logged into Match.com. He sees Facebook open up. He's like, Mom, what are you doing? Like, what do you want Match.com for? What do you want Facebook for? The mother's like, what do you mean, what am I on Match.com for? I'm a grown woman. I can do whatever I want. Listen, I still love your father. I'm not interested in falling in love again. I just want companionship. I'm lonely, she says. So my friend's like, well, Mom, you know, like, okay, I get it. You're lonely, but you know what you're doing? Like, you know what you're doing online? You know the scams. The mother's like, I know what I'm doing. I don't want to hear it. So she discounted everything her son had to say. My friend, true story, calls me 3 months later. He's like, dude, I got a problem. My mother, she met a guy, a colonel in the U.S. Army stationed in Iraq. Apparently they had this like little thing going online. And he tells her that he found a trunk of money in one of the houses they raided, and that he needed my mom's help to get that trunk of money back to the U.S. He enlisted my mom to help him get the money back to the URS, to get to the U.S. How much money do you think my friend's mom wired to this romance scam overseas? Take a guess. 20,000, 40,000, 100,000, 150,000, 200,000. Try $235,000. My friend's mom wired. My friend called me all freaked out. He threw up. He physically threw up. I mean, think about it. Like, that might have been his money someday, you know? Like, he was all upset. And that can happen to anyone. I just did a program at a bank in Maine just a couple of weeks ago, and I presented this program. And the CEO, the president of the bank, gets up afterwards. He told the audience, he's like, we have somebody come into our bank every single week, every week, 52 times a year, wanting to wire money somewhere overseas because of a romance scam. It's a big deal. Billions lost every year. Loneliness trumps common sense all day long. So this is what that ransomware scam might look like. You see this pop up, and it says you have so many days to pay and so many hours. The clock counts down, and you probably know as good as I do how long it takes to set up a Bitcoin account anyways. So you just want to make sure your devices are properly protected. This is that keylogger I was talking about. Take a look at it. So this is on Amazon. You see the male end plugs into the back of the desktop, and the female end, you plug the keyboard into that. That right there essentially is a keylogger that when you plug your keyboard into the keylogger, you piggyback the keyboard on top of the keylogger. Everything you plug into the keyboard is now stored inside the keylogging device. You can buy these on Amazon. We see these in business center PCs in hotels, and we see them in conference center PCs. We see them in hotel lobby PCs where the business people might print out their boarding pass. We see these in schools where the kids get the teacher's credentials and they can change their grades or get testing information, right? So when was the last time you checked the back of your desktop for a keylogger? Right? If all you have back there is dust bunnies, that's a problem. So you want to make sure to check the back of your desktop, all right? And really quick, I'm not going to have time to get to number 10, but let's just talk about social media really fast, okay? So protecting yourself in business while on social, but still having fun, right? So social, of course, is fun, it's entertaining, it's professional, it's for marketing, networking and connecting, customer service, public ideas and suggestions, but social is really serious. Again, I do hour and a half programs for your clients. I do full day programs for financial advisors. I do full day programs for pretty much any white collar service professional. And social is one of those, hot topics that people just don't understand what they've gotten themselves into. Social is serious. It's so serious. And here's an example. This is a legitimate tweet sent out by the Associated Press's Twitter feed. Breaking: 2 explosions in the White House and Barack Obama is injured. This happened on April 23rd, 2013 at 1:07 p.m. This is a legitimate tweet as a result of the Associated Press's Twitter feed being hacked. Now, what does it mean when the Associated Press's Twitter feed was hacked? What does that mean? It means their username and password was compromised because one of the many Associated Press employees had access to the account because, you have 10 people or so at AP that are allowed to post. And one of their devices was compromised because, they had outdated antivirus or they were phished or whatever the case is. That's what it means when the Associated Press's Twitter feed was hacked. So as a result, the Syrian army sends out this tweet, 3,302 retweets almost immediately. And as a result of this tweet, Twitter hoax claiming that an explosion occurred at the White House injuring Barack Obama led to a 150-point drop, $136 billion market value in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Social is serious. And what you post, what your status updates are, the pictures you post online, you bare-chested with the red cup, right? You liking, sharing, retweeting something homophobic, racist, inappropriate in the eyes of others can negatively affect your online reputation. It can affect your business. It can affect your livelihood. What you say, do, post, share, tweet, like matters. It just does. And people aren't thinking this through. Business professionals aren't thinking this through. I could show you example after example after example of what professionals are doing that has got them fired. They've lost business. They lost contracts and clients, like in a big way. And it does not matter if you set your profile for private, because there's no such thing. If it's online, it's repeatable. It can be duplicated. It can be copied and pasted. It can be screenshotted. It just doesn't matter. If you post something that every single one of your clients would appreciate, fine. If one of them wouldn't, then you probably shouldn't post it. So keep that in mind. Robbie, I know I've gone a little bit over my 45. We're approaching an hour. I'm sure that you have some, my audience attendees, they have some questions, and I am happy to answer. I think, let me see. Gary asked a question in regards to what's the identity theft protection service out there. I would say do your research. There are many different sites that rate and review identity theft protection. I know that all of them pretty much do the same thing. They monitor your credit reports. They monitor your information on the web. They monitor your information on the dark web. They monitor whether or not your bank account numbers or credit card numbers are in the hands of criminals. They, will, for a fee every month, keep tabs on you, and they have restoration components where if your identity is stolen, they will work on your behalf to make it go away. But the problem is that identity theft protection can't protect you from all forms of identity theft. They can't protect credit cards. They can't protect your tax-related identity theft. They can't protect you from criminal or medical-related identity theft. But the restoration component will, in most cases, kick in, and their agents will work on your behalf to make that go away. But they don't all do that. So you have to kind of do your research, ask a bunch of different questions in regards to what they will and won't do.
Rob, you're doing great. We've got just 2 quick questions in the chat. One is just your website. What is your website?
Yeah, so we are online at, robertsiciliano.com. So Robert, S-I-C-I-L-I-A-N-O, robertsiciliano.com. You can contact Robbie and or Tom, and also we are launching an e-learning course within the next month at safr.me. That's safr.me, safr.me, but it's not live yet. This is a little premature that I included that in my slides, but safr.me is, a smart and secure and safer me. We're doing an e-learning course. It's just about done, that you can provide to your clients, you can provide to your staff, to get them up to speed. I, can present to your clients via in person. I present to financial advisors and their clients all the time, in person or via a webinar. Just contact Robbie in that regard, and we're here for you.
Rob, got one more. Will the PowerPoint be sent out afterwards?
That's up to Robbie is going to include a video of the actual presentation as it was presented today, and certainly yes, we'll provide the PowerPoint as a PDF. All we ask is that you just don't post it online. You can certainly share it, just don't post it on the web.
Great, Rob. You and I can connect right after this call, and we'll get that set up. I have one more question. How safe is it to use payment apps like PayPal or Venmo instead of credit card or cash?
So I love that question, and I love that question because it matters, and it just gives you an idea of where people's heads are. So traditional payment methods like cash, obviously the concern is, you're not going to walk around with $10,000 because, you are at risk for violence, right? Credit card fraud, right? We know that every single time we use our cards, there's significant risk. But as long as you're paying attention to your statements, you're fine, right? But there's no security whatsoever in a credit card. Every single time you use your card, you are at risk of, paying for the lifestyle of an identity thief. But I use a credit card for everything. And then you have mobile payment, you have Apple Pay and so forth. You'd have a hard time cracking Venmo or Apple Pay or any other PayPal service. The path of least resistance isn't hacking Venmo. It isn't hacking PayPal. The path of least resistance is hacking you, because you use the same password across multiple accounts. And if your PayPal password is the same as your hacked Facebook account or your hacked whatever account, that's how the bad guys get in. I use PayPal for everything. I use Venmo all the time. What I suggest people do is turn on two-factor or two-step authentication for all of your mobile payment accounts. So anytime I log into PayPal, I get a text message where I have to enter a one-time password. Anytime I log into Venmo, I get a text message where I have to enter a one-time password. So as long as you have two-factor authentication set up for all of your P2P payment services, you should be fine.
Okay, great. Rob, we got one last question here. Are virtual card payments the wave of the future?
I think, Facebook might be coming out with one. I think that we're going to be sharing and exchanging more cash in that regard. I think that we're going to have credit cards around for at least another decade because they're just so easy. But these P2P virtual payments are really effective. Honestly, this might sound crazy to people. I wouldn't be surprised if we move to some type of cryptocurrency as a virtual payment in the near future. I know that, Fidelity has adopted cryptocurrency payments in their cafeterias. And that over time, when there is a cryptocurrency that becomes a default payment method, like in Amazon, could you imagine? I think that that's what ultimately we will see. That might sound crazy to people, but I think that at some level, that's going to happen.
Great. Well, Rob, this has been a very interesting call. We've had a lot of great content and some great questions and comments, and we appreciate you joining us here today. For everyone else on the line, like we said at the beginning, we'll be sending out a recording of this call. It is going to take us just a little bit of time to render the video and get it sent out, so just be patient with us. If you do have any questions, feel free to contact us at support@tomhegna.com. And if you'd like to refer anybody to Rob, definitely send him an email, give him a call at his website at robertsiciliano.com. He's available for NAFA events and for speaking engagements. And we look forward to doing a lot more work with Rob down the road. So if you have any questions, please give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. And that's going to be it. We're going to finish up here. And everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks again, Rob.